Hi, I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large, and welcome to this episode of Money Talks. This is a podcast about money, but we're not going to tell you how to get rich, and we're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. In this series, I'll be talking to interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned over the years. For today's podcast, I'm joined by popular financial advisor, author, and founder of EnableMe, Hannah McQueen. Kia ora, Hannah. Welcome to Money Talks.
Thank you.
Look, I said popular there in the intro. You have become a little bit of a household name from media appearances over the years. Do you get people recognising you in the street and asking for money advice now?
Yes, I do. Or I'm at the mall or I'm doing something maybe in a restaurant and someone will come over. Normally as I've got a mouthful of food to ask a question or to say,
yeah, well, that's
hi.
what we're wondering. What if you're splashing out and, you know...
It's not a good look if I've got shopping bags, for sure.
Yeah. But you're generally happy to sort of chat to...
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, I love talking to people, and I think when it comes to money, it's such an emotional topic, and if someone feels comfortable talking to you, well then... it's probably the only person they're willing to take advice from. So it's a privilege.
So what's the big question? You have one or two big questions that you get most often?
Yep. The big questions, how do we get ahead?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to retire. What can I do? Or the conclusions people make that they don't really ask about but say as a statement I'm not really that bad with my money, therefore I can't see how I could be much better. Therefore, there obviously isn't anything I could do.
Yeah,
and I get it, like why they've made those conclusions, but it's not quite the right conclusion.
Well, we'll get into some of that. I mean, I'm in a slightly different space, more economics. I tend to get the question, they want me to predict the future, what's going to happen to interest rates,
Yes.
What's going to happen to the economy, and I don't know, how worried should we be about whatever, and I always say, how worried do you like to be, because there's always something to worry about.
That's right. Worry about what you can control usually.
Yeah. Well, let's jump back a bit, because Money Talks is sort of about memories of money and things. What were your first memories of having money in your hands and holding money? Do you remember when it first entered your consciousness?
Yep, I remember, getting paid 20 cents to do something. I remember my first purchase that I really saved up for, which was a pair of white Reeboks.
Right, yeah.
That was my big first purchase. And I remember saving up for cassette tapes as well.
Yep. Yeah, so this was things that were like at the Reeboks, obviously, where they were too flash for the parents just to buy.
Yeah, my parents wouldn't have been able to afford them, or wouldn't have wanted to spend money, even if they could have afforded them, on something so trite in their mind.
Well, it's a good life lesson as well, though, isn't it? Because it sort of gets you focused on what you have to do to get there.
That's right. You break it down into your little steps. And I don't know what, I had a little part-time job. I used to deliver pamphlets, and I think I worked in the library, and I used to do some busking, and I think I got paid a lot one particular day, and I think that it was from a shop owner next to where I was busking, which was the difference, so I could get my shoes. But I think they were paying me to stop playing as opposed to reward my amazing playing.
Were you singing?
No, I wasn't. No.
Just guitar or a quarter?
No, I was playing, what was it, clarinet.
Oh, yeah.
I think was the main one there.
That's always a joy, children playing the
Is
clarinet.
it? I don't know. I look back, I'm like, why did you let me play that?
I was quite taken in one profile I read. It said you were encouraged by your mother to read the business pages in the newspaper from a young age, and that was sort of where you spotted that, that you realised that a large percentage of CEOs out there were accountants, and it sparked your interest. I mean, what do you remember from the business pages in those days?
Well, it felt like a different world, really, and I guess you've got an option as to whether you want to be the person who waits on the table or sits at the table. And I always wanted to be someone who sat at the table from a career perspective. And my mum highlighted to me very early on that I've got expensive tastes, or I like nice things. And so I'm going to need to have to earn good money for that lifestyle. And so that just sort of put me on a course. And she said, why don't you start reading the business pages and see what people are talking about, see what jobs are available. And maybe I was at intermediate when I started doing that, so quite young.
Yeah.
And it definitely shaped a path for me.
I mean, I've found over the years of business journalism that people come into it as they get the mortgage, and as they get a bit older, they get worried and they start reading them. But I guess, to understand, it's quite an advantage really to understand that language and just understand. It's almost like a sort of soap opera of the economy and what's happening in business, and it's not that hard once you make the leap into it, I always think.
That's right. And I think it can be quite intimidating. So many people I work with now wouldn't describe themselves as financially literate, say. They wouldn't necessarily give themselves that title, apart from the fact they know a lot, but not enough to conclude that they are confident in this area. And I think sometimes when you come to it too late, I guess perhaps it's better to understate what you are instead of overstate. Nothing worse than the person who thinks they know it all. I've got a few of those clients and you're like, dude, dial it back. You do not know what you're even talking about. But they're confident, so they can be a little reckless.
Yeah. But I mean, at some point, I guess, and I certainly feel this through the economic side, is that, to actually make money or get financially secure, you have to act and you have to put things in place. It's all very well to know a lot of stuff, but you have to choose to enact it,
implement
don't you?
it, yes. I do think that there's a big gap between knowing what to do, especially around money, and doing it. And weirdly, we're taught that financial literacy is important, but it actually accounts for less than 3% of what you need to be financially successful. And what I say to my children, but also my clients, is like, financial success, it is not a right. No one deserves that. You have to be deliberate. If you want that title of being successful, you've got to claim it.
Yeah.
And it's so different than what it once was as to how to be successful, because 2 generations ago, as long as you weren't bad with money, you were going to be okay. Yeah,
you get a job for life and you take the
That's
steps
right.
to look after themselves.
The mortgage won't be that high relative to your income. So by default, you'll be mortgage free by retirement, and you would have been contributing to a pension scheme, and there were no cafes and there were no credit cards. So all these things are just easier, right? Whereas now, even if you live within your means, which was sort of one of the mantras they lived by, even if you do that, you are unlikely to own a property, and you're certainly unlikely to retire without a mortgage. And you're not bad. Yeah.
It's interesting. One of those generational war things that comes up a lot in articles and is that spending the money on the cafes and the avocado toast and all that sort of stuff. But there probably is, and talking to older people on this podcast, you get the sense that there wasn't. And I sort of remember it, there wasn't as much to spend your money on, and it's not necessarily a choice. You've got to live in the world you live in, and people do sort of have to consume more to live in the modern world.
Well, yes, I think there's sort of a lot of elements to it. I do think the conditions are harder because costs are higher and we work longer, we've got less time, so we need convenience, you've got to pay for convenience, all of those things. Conditions are harder. But in addition to that, the generation that has to live in it is a little more useless as well, financially speaking. So that's kind of the worst combo, because when it gets harder, you're supposed to get better. And they've got harder conditions, and they just have no clue.
You've got more variables to manage, I guess.
That's right.
Just to keep going on that sort of life journey. But, so at school, were you interested in finance and economics? Did you take the subjects at school?
I did. Yeah, I found maths fairly easy. I enjoyed English as well. Those are probably my favourite subjects. And then I did the accounting and economics and young enterprise scheme and all of those things.
So you were raring to go, obviously, because you left school a year early and went straight to uni.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, I did. And did my commerce degree and got my master's in tax as well, and then ended up going to working at one of the big 4 accounting firms. And that's sort of where I started. And I was just a girl from Havelock North.
Right,
even the idea of university was quite big, but that just opened up a whole world of opportunities, yes, connections, yes, but the mechanics of how commerce really worked was interesting to me.
Yeah. And so were your parents involved in that world? I mean, Havelock North's probably not that much financial stuff going on with it,
No. Middle class income, dad self-employed, mum working part-time.
Yeah.
Never wanted for anything, but didn't live large. But no, it was, I think I was the first person on both sets of the family to go to university.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then, getting into KPMG, right? And
yes.
I often ask people there's a lot of people who've started in one of those big four, who go on to be CEOs or whatever. And I always ask, because there are some people who stay with it. It can be like a lifelong thing. You can go around the world with work in Singapore and London and New York and all those sort of things. Was there a reason that you didn't get sort of sucked into the sort of the world and want to stay there? Because you can live a very nice life working your way through one of those big organisations.
Yes, you can. And for some people, that is the right path. For me, I'm not, although I am a qualified chartered accountant, I'm not an accountant. I'm aware of risk and I mitigate risk, but I'm not fearful of risk.
Yeah.
I'm entrepreneurial. I want to push the boundaries. I want to challenge status quo. And all of that stuff is not really welcome in those settings for reasons, like specific reasons. So I think it's
very structured, isn't it? I mean,
it's structured, and they think a particular way, and they are paid to think a particular way. Society needs them to think a particular way because they're a sounding board for so many different things. But you're not going to get creativity. They are needed, but that's not where I was able to fit in. And although I was earning very good money, I still wasn't getting ahead, which was sort of the mirror reflection. And I think that was the first lesson for me that, okay, well, I am financially literate and I'm financially confident and I'm earning good income. So that should be like the 3 trump cards right there, yet it's not translating to progress. And I'm not stupid, but why is that?
Yeah, so a missing piece of the puzzle.
That's right. Yeah. And so I think earning money doesn't mean that you know how to grow wealth. No. I wanted to go on a journey to try and understand that with me, I guess, as the guinea pig of that journey.
Yeah, I mean, we see that with people who win lotto and suddenly 4 years later they got no money, and just getting money isn't a solution in itself often.
No, I've got a few lotto clients actually, some who have won it as they were a client. So we had the structures in place and we've doubled their winnings, which was amazing. Some who came to me after they lost it.
Right, yeah.
Not ideal.
Yeah, yeah.
And some who were in the process of losing it.
Because we read those stories, and you hope that the lotto people put the winners in touch with good financial advice and get them on a path to that.
Yeah, I think one of the troubles with money or any form of financial advice is it often is about where to invest your money, and the person giving the advice often has a vested interest in what that investment vehicle is. So as an accountant, I'm like, you're so conflicted in what you're saying. Which, whether that's right or wrong, that's certainly what I concluded, that financial advice comes from product placement in this country. And for a lot of the people, say, who win big, whether that's getting an inheritance, a big bonus, or the extreme of lotto, if they don't have the systems and the behaviours in place and the right people around them, easy come, easy go.
Yeah. So from KPMG, you went to a mortgage broking type firm.
Yes.
Yeah. And like from what I've read, it sort of had an interesting ending. So I won't mention them. But take me through coming up with the idea for the business for EnableMe and how that ended up.
So obviously, with my background being accounting and law and tax, and wanting to understand how you grow wealth, whether that's through managed funds or the property market with leverage became such an important part of an investment type, so using the bank's money. And I wanted to understand, okay, well, how do you actually get access to this bank's money? Like I've got my own property, I've got my own mortgage, but how come someone can get access to more money than me and I feel like we've got the same position? These were some of the things that I was curious about. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get under the hood and I'm going to work at a mortgage brokering firm to try and understand how the banks see people, because they've got their own kind of weird calculators they apply. And as part of that, I was talking to one of my colleagues and she said, it'd be so good if we helped people get out of debt rather than into debt. I'm like, what a great idea. And so we waddled up to our CEO and said, I was pretty much a graduate, early 20s, knew nothing, but felt I knew it all. And went to the MD and said, hey, why don't we help people get out of debt? This is an idea instead of into debt. And he said, great idea, draw us up a business plan. We drew up a business plan, took it to him, and he said, you're fired.
That's pretty blunt.
Yeah, but I didn't even get it. Because I'm very logical and I'm definitely not emotional in a high stress situation. That's sort of one of my little secret weapons, is that I can be calm and cool.
Yeah.
But I can't understand people who do really dumb things. And so I'm like, we have given you our business plan. We've told you what we want to do, and we've said we want to do it with you. Like, in what world are we going into competition with you? But I don't know if it's men, I don't know if it's insecure people, but he was not having a bar of it. And so, like, I am the definition of a goody good. I love to please people, and being fired from a job at like 21 or 22 or whatever it was, maybe it was early 20s. Yeah, that felt just humiliating.
Yeah, that's tough. I think anyone losing their job, even with a good redundancy and all that sort of stuff, it's always quite a blow, isn't it?
Well, we were matched.
Yeah.
So not only was I we fired, but we had a box.
Wow.
It was like very American.
Wow.
And I remember calling my husband and said, can you come and pick me up? And he came and I said what had happened, and he came and picked me up on his motorbike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this box? It was just like failure after failure.
Yeah.
In any case, one of the benefits of being completely humiliated is you don't really have fear because you have lost everything you held dear.
Yeah.
And so that's when I thought, okay, well, maybe we should help people get out of debt.
So as a leap, that leap to go into business for yourself is quite daunting for people. I guess this was a sort of a push.
Yeah, it was exactly a push with a gun to your head. And so at that stage, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do. I felt all options were kind of taken off the table. And that's when I thought, okay, well, maybe there is something in this business idea. Because it's easy to have a business idea if someone else is going to bankroll it, which was going to be the idea with my boss. Yeah. But when it's you bankrolling it, and you've still got your mortgage, and you've got all these other commitments, it's game on at that point, right? Like that's the big boy table. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe there is something in it, and that's when I started trying to work out, well, if I was going to pay my debt off faster, let's start with how would I structure my debt to do that? And that's when I started working through like the calculus algebra of how I should structure it. And I think the epiphany of that was, who knew that calculus paper at university actually has come in handy?
Yeah.
Who knew? Because, you do these papers and you're like, I'm never going to apply this ever in life. What a waste of time. And so I got far enough to realise I didn't know that much calculus, and I ended up calling the mathematics department of the University of Auckland to ask one of their maths tutors if they would help me work on this formula to pay my debt off faster at the lowest cost, because I working through the mortgage brokering, I came to realise that you pay 3 times what you borrow back to the bank.
Yeah.
And the banks would have us focus on interest rate discounts and things. And it's like, for me on my mortgage, which was $350,000, I think, so I was going to pay $1 million back. The interest rate that I was fighting for was going to save me $12,000 out of the $1 million. And I'm like, I think I'm focusing on the wrong thing here. And I think it suits them that I focus on this thing.
Yep.
So anyway, I went to work for a few months with this particular mathematician at the university, and we came up with this formula of how to structure my mortgage to pay it off quickly at the lowest cost and with the most flexibility, because that became more important than I realised at the time. But just a general awareness that usually whenever you show initiative, you regret it about a day later.
Yeah.
And so if you were going to commit more money to your mortgage, which could help you pay it off faster, you probably will need that money back at some point, and you've dug in. Showing initiative, you've actually made it hard for future you, and you haven't even realised it, which became more prevalent as I got into EnableMe. However, those 3 things, interest costs, speed of paying off the debt, and flexibility, and I patented that formula, and it would save me the size of my mortgage and interest costs. And I'm so $350,000 back then. And so I'm like, okay, I've got it. And then I'm like, hold on a minute. For this formula to work, I need to have money left over. Because it's about channeling your surplus into the mortgage.
Yeah, yep.
And I'm like, I don't have money left over.
So then you get into budgeting. And
but I can write a budget. I'm an accountant. I can colour code a budget. I just wouldn't stick to a budget.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'm like, and why is that? And that's when I thought, hold on, behavioural economics has more of a role to play here than financial literacy. And that's when I spent time researching and experimenting with behavioural economics, why people behave a particular way, and based on that, how you should respond.
Yeah.
Because I think changing people, like if you're programmed to be a spender, as I am, it's not that I can't save, I just need a reason to save. So engaging me is different to how you would engage a saver who actually enjoys not spending money. Who knew that was a thing?
Yeah, that's interesting. We were talking about that earlier, just because it's similar to sort of, you can read, we're talking about financial articles and the other articles you read about, weight loss and how to change your eating habits. And you can read these things over and over again, but unless you're able to somehow integrate it into your life and actually act on it or make it work, reduce the calories somehow, there needs to be practical ways to make it work, I guess.
Yeah, you need to have the systems. Like if you go back to kind of Form 3 science, when they're teaching you about momentum, right? They would roll a marble across the science desk or something and say when you introduce friction, it slows the pace of the marble. And I think, well, for anything, but when you're trying to create progress or financial progress, when you introduce friction, it slows things down. And the biggest friction to progress often is your own tendencies around money. And so if we can make that process where the tendencies aren't fighting against what you're trying to achieve, how easy can we make it for you? You're more likely to keep doing it and get that momentum.
So I guess a lot of what you're doing with clients is that kind of behavioural economics, psychology comes into it. It's understanding your own, the way each client or each person or reader of your book is. You have to understand yourself, and you have to understand what motivates you and what actually stops you achieving things, and then integrate the formulas into it.
That's right. There's almost two components of it. So when it comes to maximising your surplus, that is all behavioural economics. That's to do with your money beliefs, your tendencies, how you respond. Like that's sort of got nothing to do with your financial position as such. It's just who you are, what you're not, who you need to hear it from to actually do it. That's that component. So that's psychology. Creating wealth is science. That is calculated steps in a particular way to maximise an output. But if you haven't got the psychology and the behaviours right, you never get to the wealth part. And what maybe 20 years ago, the surplus wasn't as important as it is now, and back in the day, you could sort of almost, if you bought a property, you were going to be okay because the conditions were always favourable enough, even if you had no clue whether you were buying the right property and never had a strategy of how you were going to hold it, you were going to probably be okay. Whereas now, all that has happened is the margin of error to get it wrong is very, very small. And if you don't perform in the acceptable range, you are likely to get yourself burned. Yeah.
And also, I feel like as I've got older and, obviously I'm in the industry to some extent, I've learned enough about myself to understand it. But some people will never get it, but some people sort of learn this stuff later in life when it's almost, the time for the big gains is almost gone.
It's gone,
And so getting people to understand at a younger age, or helping them to understand at a younger age what their drivers and their barriers are, is probably pretty key to because of course wealth snowballs over a long period of time if you can get going the right way earlier.
I think one of the benefits of being slightly older though is that your runway is short. You've got one shot to get this right, so you bring your A game, whereas sometimes when you start too early, there is no real urgency. There's still a romance around pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
It's not until you get your mortgage, you have your kids. You're like, okay, this is it. And so I think it is about understanding what your trump cards are and how you play them, but I don't think people are particularly good at determining what their trump cards are. So we think that the trump card is you should just earn more money. That surely, if you earn good money, surely you're going to be financially successful. But all that happens is, for most of us, the more you earn, the more relaxed you become around your money. And so it doesn't translate to you becoming more deliberate. You just have lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
So that's not really a trump card. A trump card might be that you are single, so you don't have which normally would be perhaps a financial detriment. But if you don't have a partner that's sucking your money, that might be a trump card. Kids, if you don't have kids, that is certainly a trump card. And if your kids aren't talented, that is a trump card. But if you are older, you've got 5 years until retirement, I would say that's your trump card, because it's game on. It's the rubber's hitting the road here, and there is a willingness to do what is needed to get the job done, and that mindset shift that only comes from the fact that you can see the end of your runway, that is a trump card.
Yeah. You've become an author. You've turned some of this into a couple of books, I think, and you've got one out now. I mean, how was that process, and how did you find sort of trying to codify it all into an easy read, I guess?
It was good. It was good. Because I work with so many clients, I think I have this, I think since I've started EnableMe, I've been doing it for 16 years, I've had 20,000 client meetings.
It's a lot of case studies.
There's a lot of case studies. So I feel like I've seen it all. And with that, you realise that some things we are taught are important financially, but actually aren't, and some things that you don't even think are important are more prolific in your success than what you would ever know. But I have seen it. I've worked with people who are just starting out at 16, that's my youngest client, through to 86, no money or in debt, through to 100 million. Most of us don't have anywhere close to that, but this is kind of the extreme. I've had clients that are financially compatible, clients that aren't, some that don't even know how to set goals, some who don't know how to stick to a budget, I feel like I've seen it all, and I've seen behind the curtain and under the hood, and sometimes I feel I'm more of a marriage counsellor than a financial advisor, or I'm a cheerleader or whatever it is, but I know, irrespective of what I'm working with, what I need to do to get this person into a better financial position, and it feels great to be able to present that so people can read it for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, at 16 years, have you noticed trends change? I've noticed that, there has been a resurgence of young people getting back into the markets with Sharesies and things, and Bitcoin, but there's also a sort of it's very much a lot of young men starting out trading sneakers, Bitcoin, Sharesies, all that kind of stuff, quite high risk kind of glamour end of it all. I mean, do you see these trends come through?
Yeah, yes, there are trends, and certainly when there's glamour attached to it, the trend seems to be higher. I think that no matter whoever you are, you always benefit from having a plan that excites you, and trying to unlock what that could be for you is quite important. So I had a client that, to the outside world, very successful, earning a couple of $100,000 a year, female, at the top of her game, and no savings. So doesn't own a home, actually has short-term debt, no savings. And on one hand, you're like, how is that even possible? I mean, come on. And some of it's to do with the beliefs, how she's been taught about money, the role of money in your life when she was a young child, the fact that her parents didn't know how to manage money, the fact that she makes more money than her peers, so she sort of feels guilty about that, so then wants to be generous. So all these reasons which help explain but don't show you what to do differently, right?
Yeah.
And so I said to her, what is your tendency around money? And she says, well, I like to spend. I'm a shopper. And I'm like, what's your spending style? And she says, I'm fast and I'm loose. I'm like, I love it. I'm like, we're going to be good friends. And for her, she never thought she could pay off the debt, the short-term debt. So the idea of owning a house just seemed improbable. So what is the point of trying?
Right, yeah. And a lot of younger Kiwis probably do feel like that.
Exactly. They genuinely think they're not going to be able to get onto the housing ladder, and what their parents said is unlikely to be the way that they get there.
Yeah.
And the parents are the ones giving them their advice. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So I think economically, we can't afford for this next generation to feel like they can't make progress. Like, that's dangerous when you remove hope from a generation, financial hope. And whether it's right or wrong, close to 90% of that generation measure financial success as being able to own a property.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and then 80% feel they never will. Oh my gosh, this is not a healthy coupling
for the whole country. Yeah. Look, I've got a few quick-fire Money Talks questions here. One of them is, what would be the poorest you've ever been?
At university.
Poor student?
Poor student, yeah, I hated it. I was actually talking to my son about that. I said I was just so eager to finish university, so I finished it a little bit earlier by working harder. And I said, because I hated being poor.
Yeah. Did you have to take on debt?
I took on debt at my final year of my master's.
Yeah.
But I managed to work through with a job and working in the holidays to keep debt down. And my parents were at that level where they didn't really earn enough for me to qualify. They earned enough for me not to qualify for anything.
For any allowances, yeah.
But not enough to help pay off my fees.
So it was basically a lot of hard work. Flip side of that is we often like to ask, what's the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
I've got a couple, quite recent actually.
Yeah, sure.
One was I bought a glamping tent one night, which was weird. I said to my husband, I feel like this was a drunk purchase, but I wasn't drunk, but I felt the need to have a glamping tent.
So are you quite a big camper? Or?
No.
Well, that's why you want a glamping tent,
I think
right?
so. I think I was channeling Swiss Family Robinson.
So what is a glamping? I mean,
it's like
they're all quite big and fancy now, but this is like a 3-bedroom. You charge it out at $300, $400 a night. An Airbnb with you to the wilderness.
That's right. So that's a bit weird. And then another one, I've just bought tickets to a concert in England.
Oh, cool. Well, that's kind of a holiday and concert. But who are you going to see?
Taylor.
Oh, you're going to see Taylor in
Wembley.
London. Wow, that's amazing. That's cool. Well, that's a life memory, though, isn't it?
That's right.
When it comes to spending on, when people spend on experiences, it's often hard to fault it because it is what it is. You've got a limited time to enjoy life, and
off we go.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about lotto earlier and lotto winners. Do quite like to ask, do you still buy lotto tickets? Do you still imagine winning lotto?
I don't buy lotto tickets.
Did you ever?
No, I don't think I did. I remember taking an oath to myself saying if I ever won lotto, I would give it away because I'll never let my success be a chance. And because I said that oath, I guess I could retract the oath. Yeah. But I've never bought a lotto ticket since. I'm like, there's no point. I'm never going to keep it anyway.
Yeah.
So no, I don't buy lotto.
And look, one final question, and it is kind of a big, fixing New Zealand kind of question, and it's really, if we could make you Prime Minister for the day or, supreme ruler of New Zealand, is there a policy or something that you would do that you would want to bring in that you think would change the game and help New Zealand be wealthier and a happier place?
Yes, many, in fact. I think that the strength of the economy is the strength of our middle class, and the closer or the more compact that middle class is, the better. And all we're seeing at the moment is that people are becoming poorer, and that size of the middle class, like the lower end of the middle class, is really just working poor rather than those who could be rich.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. So we've got to help those people become successful. I do think they need to introduce a stamp duty or a capital gains tax and have that actually, the proceeds of that directed to deliver particular financial outcomes. So it's going back in, not just getting lost in the middle.
So that's about incentivising some good investment for New Zealand.
That's right. And so even if you introduce a stamp duty, a form of capital gains tax on property, say, and I personally don't think that the family home should be removed from these things, but let's say it was only 2% of the profit. Half of that goes to the local government so they can actually get their infrastructure in place, and half goes to the federal, right? And use that money to grow. Like, why don't we decide that we want to be the leading medical something for the world, and why don't we build more hospitals and do things that actually are going to help us become more productive? But I probably need more than a day.
You probably need more than a day. It sounds well thought through. You have never considered going to politics?
No. Hesitation.
Okay. No, look, that's great, Hannah. I'm going to leave it there, but fantastic to chat to you. Thanks for being on Money Talks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Money Talks. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzme.co.nz. And you can read more from me at nzherald.co.nz. Thanks to my producer, Ethan Sills, and sound engineer, Leanne McDonald. Follow Money Talks on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes available every Thursday.